Our next speaker, we're so pleased to have Jishnu Gupta, our global CTO. He runs the global technology operations of Straive, formerly known as SPI Global, and certainly one of the nation's premier tech companies, homegrown. And now, as I mentioned, a true global operation. He manages operations in Philippines, India, as well as the US and UK, as I understand, and upwards of 500 people, technology people in his group managing these global operations. He has managed operations previously in the banking sector across the UK, US, Russia, Romania, India, on and on. So really pleased to have his insight about everything that is happening today in tech. Please welcome Jishnu Gupta, the CTO of Straive. Glad to have you, my friend. How are you?
Very good. Thanks, Richard, for the introduction. So I'll talk today a little bit about the unstructured data world. And this is a little interesting and very close to Strive's, what we do around in Straive, right? And the unstructured data actually, from an industry perspective, is a little different from what we know as the classic data. It really comes in various sources like PDF, web data, as well as images, videos, and different data point assets, right? And I'll cover three big trends here. One is the evolving landscape of data. The next one is how do we manage unstructured data and some of the challenges as well as opportunities. And finally, our Strive's data platform. So very quickly, let me introduce Straive as well. And Richard, you pointed out it was previously known as SPI Global. Now we have rebranded as Straive, and it's an industry-leading service provider of technology-driven content operations as well as data solutions, right? And we are organized in three big segments or business segments and verticals. One is data solutions, which really is around financial services, insurance, information provider business. The second one is around EdTech, which is really grown with the pandemic situation with all the virtual learning and digital learning material. And the third vertical is around the research content side, right, which is really around our publishing side of the platform. And as you mentioned, Richard, we are present strongly in Philippines, but we have also a very good presence in India, US, and other countries. So what is happening in the data world? Today, every company we look at can be considered to be a data company. When we go and do banking in the banking world, when you're doing your KYC process or your fraud detection process, it's all around data. When we work in oil and gas companies and the big oil and gas companies, they look at data now to increase their productivity. Similarly, in the education sector, as well as in the healthcare. Now, again, with the pandemic, the healthcare is a very big segment in research and content. It relies hugely on data, on medical data, devices, disease, drugs data, right? To be able to mine all of the data and drive insights from the data. What is happening here is that the unstructured data world is really growing about 65% every year. And from various sources, and this is becoming really an unprecedented growth in the data world. The companies here are also looking not only at data, but how can they drive action from data, right? Insights, analytics, decision-making from data. And we talk a lot about the AI trend and the ML and the analytics trend. Analytics is still nascent here in the industry, and it's really moving towards simplification and industrialization. And finally, the biggest trend and continues to happen is really driving business value, which is the top priority. If I go and look at some of the challenges that we are seeing around unstructured data, one of the most important pieces is that on one side, companies are creating a lot of data lakes, data warehouse, big analytic programs. But at the enterprise level, a lot of the organization data is still remains at the early stages of the pipeline, and it's not processed seamlessly. Right? The second is really the variability in the data quality itself, because we are acquiring data now from multiple sources, whether they be news data, whether they be data from courthouses, or they be data from insurance companies. The variability of the data is huge, right? And the completeness of the data lacks the quality and structure. And it varies between regions, between time, between sources. So that we see is a very big problem in the data quality in its definition and the KPI metrics around it. And this really leads to a lack of common data standards to be able to drive a unified process across industry segments, even regulatory bodies, but also within companies, we see this trend happening. And finally, the overall data processing is still a very manual process by and large, right? Especially around the unstructured data world. And that impacts scalability and cost. So to address some of these challenges around unstructured data, the overall process of maturing the data operations pipeline is what we have thought of, right? And the idea is really to start very simple by defining goals and objectives of what you need within your company as well as within the business operations that you're running. Second is identify the gaps and prioritize them, because the data value chain is really a very big value chain. So to be able to prioritize what is your important needs is an important part of the overall supply chain. The third dimension here is to really create flexibility in your platform and software development ecosystem so that you can easily integrate with other platforms, acquire data seamlessly, and manage the whole data pipeline in a very API seamless integration model. Right? And finally, it's really the whole principle of agile, that is start small, pick up the most important processes that drive business value, learn and repeat the process. Very similar to running a marathon, essentially. Then you don't just start running a marathon. You start with your 5K, 10K, go up to the half marathons, and then really gear up for the marathons. Exactly the same way. And around the AI ML processes, identify which processes are highly valuable to you from a business impact perspective, but also that are struggling through business rules, right? So to pick up those processes that you can drive automation through AI, ML, NLP techniques on the pipeline. And the business approach here is often we tend to tackle the data problem at the later stage. Really focus from a data standardization and standards perspective, really at the forefront of the supply chain. That is the input. And how do you standardize the overall input? Drive the automation across the content acquisition pipeline, right from the as you receive the content, right? And then keep a strong eye on data quality KPI right from the beginning of your program, so that you have the overall governance, data governance framework that is sitting. And then, of course, start building the conversion and the processes engine around automation, and have the flexibility model, as we discussed, to keep it absorbing various data formats as needed, right? To be having a flexible model. And to sum it up, what we have done at Straive is really to bring all of this together of the business problem and challenges, and bring it together in an opportunity in what we call our Straive data platform. It's a proprietary built platform, really an end-to-end solution that goes from content acquisition. We take on various sources, whether they're public web sources, legal court data, regulatory data, internal documents from insurance companies or financial services companies. We take on audio, video, images as assets, and we process through a data pipeline. The platform processes through a data pipeline. And we acquire the data, then we extract the relevant metadata and the information from the data that is required, enrich the data, curate and enrich the data, finally transform the data by removing all the noise, cleaning up, making it seamless, and then we deliver the data back to our clients, or we drive insights and analytics out of the data output. And this is a fully cloud-hosted platform, that goes end-to-end into the life cycle, a very scalable platform that cuts across various industries, whether it be real estate, financial services, healthcare, industries, right? And that is that's a summary of our data platform that takes up all these data challenges and has, we have orchestrated an end-to-end platform to solve this data problem.